Welcome back, folks. Today we are discussing a topic that might seem a little odd, but I'm a fan of B movies, and growing up in the 80s, we had no shortage of those. And a pair of B movie stars, and I know you're thinking a pair, well, they were twin brothers. Peter and David Paul, better known as the Barbarian brothers, and I came across this article today chronicling their rise and where they are today, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the movies they were in and how just off the wall and out of the ordinary these guys were to be part of the bodybuilding community in the 80s and actors in the 80s, and what their movies were like. If you've never heard of Peter and David Paul before, ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
They were rogues.
Look at the size of you two.
Adventure.
Your necks are bigger than your heads.
Ma, it's only because there are no muscles in our heads to exercise.
Dave, you wouldn't shoot your own brother, would you? You're crazy.
And if you're in a tight corner, they'll always lend a hand.
Yeah, that works.
I like
all right.
that.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Hey, what about Tulip?
John, Candy, Rose, and Barb, both of them are superstars.
No doubt about it.
The Barbarian brothers were viral superstars decades before social media. The twins, David and Peter Paul, were world famous for their strength and physiques, yet they never competed in a powerlifting meet or bodybuilding contest. Think Bradley Martin, but all the while working out in jeans, flannel shirts, and lumberjack boots, breaking norms in and out of the gym. They were like pro wrestlers who never wrestled professionally, and improbably, they were movie stars for a brief period in the late 1980s and early 1990s. This is the incredible, strange story of the twins who took muscledom by storm, the Barbarian brothers. Fraternal twins David and Peter Paul were born on March 8, 1957 in Hartford, Connecticut. Their dad had been a college track star. Their older brother and sister had grown up peacefully, but the twins were regularly finding trouble. David especially was teased for being dumb and constantly fighting. They later discovered he and Peter were severely dyslexic. In high school, David, always a little bigger than his twin, excelled in football, and they both made all New England as wrestlers. But what they really loved was pumping iron. David was bench pressing 300 pounds when he was only 15 years old. Though not identical, it was tough to tell them apart, and all the more so as they both developed very similar bodybuilder physiques. In May of 1979, after encouragement from one of Gold's Gym new owners, pro bodybuilder Pete Gramowski, whom they met at a New York bodybuilding contest, the duo moved across the country to the opposite coast to Los Angeles to follow in the footsteps of rising star Arnold Schwarzenegger and TV's Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno. We pulled up together on a motorcycle the first day and people stared at us as if we were Martians. You know, we had the jeans, the boots, the flannel shirts, the headbands. We walked in, went to the bench press and started warming up. We got our work sets with 500 pounds, which we could both do for a lot of sets and reps. That was a normal weight for us, nothing special, but the members of Gold's were freaking out. We built a reputation fast as these two incredibly strong twins. David Paul reminisced about his and his brother Peter's early days in Southern California. By the early 1980s, with Arnold's Conan the Barbarian on the way, the Paul twins became the Barbarians, or the Barbarian brothers, and that's what the press ran with. Oh, and the press loved them. They were profiled in Muscle and Fitness and Muscle Mag and Powerlifting USA, where they were made the 1982 January cover. They were in Los Angeles Times and appeared on local and national TV talk shows. Ironically, the Barbarian brothers were experienced amateur wrestlers with the physiques, costumes, and tag team names set to go, but they never competed in pro wrestling. Perhaps they were just a little early for the WWF boom of the 1980s. By then, they were already making their way in Hollywood. They had small roles in DC Cab, The Flamingo Kid, and a guest spot on TV's Knight Rider. In 1986, the Paul twins journeyed to Italy to star in a cheap Conan knockoff titled simply The Barbarians. We got there a month early to train in sword fighting and to ride horses so that we looked good at what we were doing. Thank God we had practiced a lot of sword fighting. We had those helmets on. You couldn't see out of those things. It had to be like a dance, otherwise it wouldn't have worked out, David remembered. But it was a blast riding horses. Italy is amazing. The food, the culture, the people. What a beautiful country. That was the most fun movie we did by far. the movie bombed. I don't know what happened, but something happened to our careers after this movie. There were a lot of articles in magazines and newspapers all over the world that my brother and I were going to take over, David Paul continued. We were funny and we were different. I can't say for sure, but something did happen. After that movie, we only did B movies. The Barbarians was a B movie, but it looked expensive. It didn't have a B movie written all over it.
I'm glad.
Go ahead.
The Barbarians.
Sometime before and perhaps after the Barbarians, the Paul twins got plastic surgery, strengthening their jaws and narrowing their noses, and they took to wearing their Barbarian wigs on and off screen. And then came those B movies, a trio of straight-to-video comedies in which they starred. Think Big, 1990, Double Trouble, 1992, and Twin Sitters in 1994. They're all bad, but they may have enough cheesy moments to slip into the so bad they're good category. Some members of the Gen Y remember these movies fondly from their VHS childhoods, as if the Paul twins were their affable sitters. The Barbarian brothers' 1A movie would have been Natural Born Killers, in which they appear in a bizarre, nearly 3-minute scene opposite Robert Downey Jr. with literally no legs. It got cut from the final movie. I can honestly say, having seen all of these movies, I remember the Barbarians, I remember Think Big, I remember Twin Sitters vaguely, and Double Trouble I definitely remember. Not plots or anything, just having seen them. Think Big is the first one that always comes to mind just because of the song. But let's take a look at how these movies fare on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, like we said in the article, these all fall under the category of so bad they're good, 80s and 90s cheesy VHS fun, as many of the movies back then were. The straight to DVD stuff, no, the straight to VHS stuff back then. If you were a kid, teenager, whatever, you went into the video store, yeah, there was new releases that were the theatrical ones, yeah, cool. But they were always the ones with the awesome cases, with the great art and the cool titles that you were like. And that's how we found a lot of these. If not in the video stores, you would see them on Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, something like that, in the 80s and 90s. So let's take a look at the Rotten Tomatoes performance of these four, shall we? And don't be too surprised. As I said, don't be too surprised. The Barbarians coming in at 46%, the 1987 adventure, first feature starring the Paul brothers. Then you have Think Big from 1990, a 59%. Hey, what do you know? It went up a little bit. But what do we have next? Double Trouble, back down to 40%. And then Twin Sitters at 59%, which is where they seem to live. The Pauls even went so far as to release a rap song for the Twin Sitters soundtrack, which we'll listen to right now.
Say you better beware, punk. What you looking at? What you looking at? What you looking at? What you looking at? You don't know me like that. What you looking at? What you looking at? What you looking at? You don't know me like that.
If you're wondering why that last section's titled Unhappy Endings, you've got to know there's a fall after the fame. And this happened in 2013. Peter had mental issues. David made a documentary about him, a dreamlike movie about his mental struggles titled Faith Street Corner. It played at film festivals but was never released. David died in his sleep on March 6th, 2020. Peter is relocated to the East Coast, where he still lives to this day and battles with his mental issues. The article ends. In 1987, when The Barbarians was in theaters, Peter Paul said, "Bodybuilders have a very rigid approach to things, and we're outcasts in that world because we've done things our own way. We ate junk food, trained heavy on weights, wore earrings and work boots instead of sneakers. One of our goals is to change people's preconceptions about bodybuilders." They certainly did that, if only for a few years in the 1980s. Long before social media, the Barbarian brothers went viral for their outrageous strength and their more outrageous style, and showed the world there was more than one way to be a famous bodybuilder. If you're interested in any of these movies, I highly suggest you check them out. I'll post links to all four of them in the description to the videos. They're all available on YouTube. And I actually think we're going to do a watch party for Think Big coming up soon, and maybe even the Barbarians, as they're just fun movies to watch. So I hope you enjoyed this video, folks. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you're so inclined. You can join as a channel member. If not, just subscribe. It's free. It always will be. I'm Etep Wakuian from The Place to Be Reviews. I've been here with all of yous. If I don't see you, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow, and remember, you gotta think big.
You need the eye of the tiger.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
It's better to burn out than to fade away. I could do this all day.
Cruise, thank you very much.
What's up, bro?
You're pushing your luck, little man.
No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.